Welcome to the Hormone Hub, your go-to source for the conversations every woman in her 40s and 50s needs to have. I'm your host, Kylie Pinwill, your nutritionist helping you navigate your way through perimenopause, menopause and beyond so you can say goodbye to the endless fatigue, unexplained weight gain, hot flushes, PMS, mood changes and more that come on this hormonal roller coaster. If you missed the memo or think this is only for women of a certain age, ladies, it's time to think again. Now sit back, relax and enjoy the show. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of my latest episodes, which are released every week. Share it with your friends, your sweaty sisters. The more we talk, the more we help each other. Hello, and welcome back to this episode of the Hormone Hub. Now, this is a really fun episode. I put questions out to our Hormone Hub Facebook community to ask me anything, and I would answer it in a podcast. And our community didn't disappoint. You guys came up with some great questions. And it really highlighted a few things for me. So that ongoing need to, educate women around, what actually happens to your body during perimenopause, because we're never taught this. And, I feel like I bang on about it all the time, but obviously women who are fairly new to our community or haven't been with us for as long a time, don't know. And no one ever tells us, what happens to our body during perimenopause and menopause. So we're going to hit on some of those great questions, how it impacts your cycle, how it impacts your overall health. And the other thing that the questions really highlighted was the importance of an individual approach to healthcare. Okay, so there was no two women had the same question or even the same health concern. So it goes to show, what you definitely don't need is just a one-size-fits-all kind of support approach. We are all different. We're all at a different stage in our hormonal journey, and we've all coming in with different health concerns, different, needs. So, this is where we do need very personalised support. We are not a blanket, one size fits all. So hopefully today we will answer some of your questions and you'll get a lot out of it. And I think I'll make this thing a regular episode because it was, obviously a lot of questions, ladies want answers to, and it was a lot of fun for me to do. All right, so let's jump in. So our first couple of questions are all around sleep. All right, so first up, Chrissy asked, what can I do to help sleep? And I think this is a really good question because for a lot of women, losing or waking up in the middle of the night and losing that ability to be able to stay asleep for longer periods, does become harder, and you first tend to notice this in perimenopause. For some women, they get the night sweats along with that, but for other women, it's just hard to stay asleep. So there are a few things that we can do to try and improve our sleep. So first up, we want to establish a regular sleep schedule and stick to it as much as possible. So this means going to bed at the same time, getting up at the same time. It also means, not being on your phone for the 2 hours before you go to bed. So we want to minimize that blue light. So if we think we're flicking through our phone and scrolling through our phone, that's kind of like giving our brain, a movie on steroids, because our brain has to keep up with all those images. So definitely, I know in our house we have a no phones after dinner rule, and that can certainly help. So there's the blue light and also just that constant stimulation. So no phones in the bedroom. That extends to TVs, iPads, laptops, all of those things as well. So if you can limit your exposure to blue light as much as possible, it's going to help you sleep. Making sure your room is cool, dark, and as quiet as it can be. Avoiding caffeine, alcohol, nicotine, sugar before bedtime. So that means no more snacking after dinner. Also, considering relaxation techniques. So deep breathing, meditation, yoga can also, help you unwind after bed. And also, when it comes to dinner, what can wake us up in the middle of the night is when our blood sugar dips. So when we sort of hit that 2 a.m., 3 a.m., our blood sugar can dip. So we want to make sure that we're having a really balanced meal at dinner time. So this means including some protein, which is going to stable out your blood sugar, and also including a small amount of carbs. So, I find a lot of my clients when we've all been scared of eating carbs at night for so long, but when we introduce those carbs back in, it helps the quality of our sleep, and definitely the quality of the carbs is what we want to look at. Now, Mel asked a great question, and how does the lack of sleep cause belly fat? And now I love this question because it's looking at then the relationship with your hormones. So when we sleep, we're on that circadian rhythm. So our circadian rhythm makes us feel sleepy and makes us fall asleep. And then, it's cortisol, which is our stress hormone, kicks in the morning to get us up, get us out of bed. But what happens is when we don't get enough sleep, that whole circadian rhythm is thrown out. And then our body produces more cortisol, and cortisol is a hormone that helps us regulate stress. Now, high cortisol levels have been associated with an increase in belly fat. And it's kind of got that chicken and the egg. When we're tired and we're not sleeping, we're also more likely to make poor food choices. We're also more likely to skip our, getting up and going for a walk in the morning because we're tired. So, we're looking for the sugary, the more carby sort of foods to keep us going, to lift us up. We're tired, so we're missing our workout. So that's going to impact our weight as well. But also another thing is our blood sugar is off. So when we are, we're tired, we're reaching our blood sugar's low, we're reaching for the sugar, reaching for the carbs, it's going to trigger our insulin response. And insulin is another hormone that, specifically triggers our body to store weight, and generally around the belly as well. Now, the other thing that can happen when we're not getting a good night's sleep is it can throw out our hormones that regulate our appetite. So specifically leptin. So leptin is our hormone that tells us that we're full. Now, if that hormone isn't working, and remember, all of our hormones are connected. So if one is out, all is out. So if our melatonin's out because we're not sleeping, it's going to throw out our cortisol. Cortisol is going to throw out blood sugar. Blood sugar is going to throw out leptin. So you can see it's got that domino effect. So leptin is the hormone that tells us that we're full. It tells us that we've satisfied, we've had enough. But when we haven't had enough sleep and our blood sugar is low and we're just we're in survival mode, so our cortisol is high, leptin thinks it's all too hard, so it just doesn't show up. So that's why we can kind of keep eating, and we're constantly snacking because we're looking at lifting up our blood sugar, but also waiting for leptin to kick in, and it doesn't. So you can sort of see how all of those things stack up and trigger, our body to store weight around the belly. So yeah, great question. Thanks for that, Mel. Okay, so next question was all around headaches and migraines. And this is really good because I don't talk about this a lot in, podcasts and in my blogs, but it's certainly something that we work with a lot of our clients. So Anita said she's 48, she's been experiencing migraines for the last few years around her cycle and very disturbed sleep. Now, this is a great question. Like I said, migraines can be certainly a common symptom of menopause, and disturbed sleep can contribute to the frequency and also the intensity of migraines. So it's important, to circle back to establishing those healthy sleep habits and also trying to avoid triggers that might be causing migraines. So quite often it's food sensitivities, also foods such as alcohol, chocolate, cheese, coffee, they've all been sort of linked back to migraines. Avoiding stress or minimizing stress, because stress can be a big trigger for migraines as well. Now, increasing things like magnesium, taurine, particularly in the lead up to your period, so in between ovulation and when you're, that day one of your bleed, that can help enormously as well. And also too, it's important to track it. So you can, so if you start tracking, then we can, put a link back to when those migraines, does it start at ovulation? Is it worse at ovulation? Or is it actually worse during your bleed? Do you have headaches in between? So starting to track it and starting to, and then we can manage it and sort of play with those doses of magnesium and taurine. And it could even be that we need to look at some sort of oral micronized progesterone just to help support and lift those progesterone levels for sure. But definitely, there's a correlation with, perimenopause and an increase in migraines. Now, just linked to that, Kathy asks, I'm suffering from head pressure, pain in my left temple and my eye. Is it related and what can I do to manage it? Now, Kathy, I would love to sort of dive deeper into this for you, but it also, not knowing your health history, I can't give specific answers, but certainly if there's anything that you're concerned about, 100% I would recommend getting it checked out medically, because we do want to sort of make sure that there's nothing sinister, and there's a good chance there's not, but we just want to rule out any cause for concern. Specifically, when you've got such a specific pain, I would want to get that checked out first. But then, certainly we can then look at what foods is it, where is that? Is it at in your cycle? And, we can link it back. But at 100%, it's essential to rule out any other medical conditions that might be triggering that. Okay, so on to some perimenopause symptoms. So Judy says, my period was 4 days later last month, 4 days later this month. Normally I'm like clockwork. What could you suggest, if anything? And this is definitely a sign of, your body transitioning to menopause. So again, track your periods, because it's good to sort of like monitor those changes. But I also wouldn't be overly concerned, because what happens as we go through perimenopause, in some cases, our periods can get further apart and lighter, and that's part of it. And for some women, the periods become more closer together, heavier. Some women can go, 8, 9, 10 months without a period. And then all of a sudden they'll get a humdinger of a period. So it'll be heavy, it'll be clotty, it'll be revolting. And it's almost like your body has a last hurrah. And this is actually more common than you think. And then, because we're officially in menopause when we haven't had a period for 12 months. So yes, if you have that humdinger of a period, yes, we do start the countdown for 12 months again from that last period. So it can be annoying. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but it's just, part of it. And then Erica says, why do I get the symptoms of a menstrual cycle with cramps, swollen breasts, fatigues, but actually only get it once a year? So it's possible for us to cycle even if we're not getting a menstrual cycle. Likewise, it's possible for us to have a menstrual cycle, and if we're in perimenopause, we may not actually be ovulating, okay? So our body is still sort of working through those cycles, but it may not be that, it might be we get the cramps, we get the symptoms of a menstrual cycle without actually getting a period. Okay, so it's still indicating that we've got the hormone fluctuations. And like I said, it's not uncommon for women to experience irregular periods or changes in your menstrual cycle as you transition through perimenopause and menopause. Okay, now Jane has asked, do you have to have removed a 1 centimetre polyp and a 2 centimetre fibroid? She's also got a very tiny cyst on her ovary. Her nutrition's great. She's scrutinised it to a T, on target with cycle. Initial issue was menstruating for 3 weeks, and prior to that was irregular, low in iron, blood tests, everything else was pretty good. Okay, so having a small polyp cyst or fibroid doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be removed. Like, quite often these will sort of dissolve and, your body sort of just reabsorbs them. It all very much depends on the size and the location of the growths, as well as any symptoms that you might be experiencing. If low iron, is generally linked to a sort of a heavier bleed, so it's certainly worth investigating other things that can be affecting your menstrual health. So with polyps, fibroids, cysts, things like that, that sort of indicates to me that, the ratio of estrogen to progesterone is out, and you tend to, which is normal through perimenopause, and those higher levels of circulating estrogen can trigger this. And again, certainly if there is any concerns, get it checked out medically. We just want to make sure that there's nothing else going on, but certainly there's a lot we can do with stress habits, sleep habits, exercise habits, as well as nutrition. And if you're menstruating for 3 weeks at a time, this is, again, not uncommon, but certainly it would, I would expect that to be indicating low blood. So low iron. So we need to address, are you getting enough iron-rich foods in your diet? Are you getting lots of liver-friendly foods in your diet, which is going to help process that excess estrogen? This Hormone Hub episode is sponsored by our free Hormone Help Call. On the call, we'll give you some clarity around what's causing your symptoms and the 3 simple steps you can start using straight away. And if you're ready to take the next step and find out how we can help you, we can talk about that too. So if you're constantly feeling tired, struggling with weight gain, PMS, mood swings, bloating, not sleeping at night, cravings, anxiety, all the things, we're ready to help. If you're ready to ditch those sugar cravings, regain your energy and shift that stubborn weight, then let us help you balance your hormones, reset your metabolism and get your confidence back so you can live the life you're meant to. The link with the details to our Hormone Help Call is in our show notes or over at kyliepinwell.com. Okay. Now, Brandy says her period has been irregular for 2 years. It ranges from a 17-day cycle to a 62-day cycle. How long can something like this go on? I'm also gaining weight and have changed nothing in my diet, have upped my exercise, and I'm not sure where to go from here. I'll be 50 in October. Liz said, I'm the same. One was so late, I seriously started to wonder if I was pregnant. Very next day after I said to my partner, hope it's not pregnancy, it arrived. It was awful, heavy, clotting, disgusting mess. And you know what? This is so common, and it is, welcome to perimenopause, ladies. This is where your hormones are fluctuating. So you get big surges in estrogen and progesterone, big drops in estrogen and progesterone. It's normal for your cycles to become further and further apart. So, for some women, it happens out of the blue. For other women, it happens, quite suddenly. So it can be a bit of a shock. And pregnancy potentially is on the radar. But certainly, menopause is when we haven't had a period for a year. So having those bigger and longer gaps in between your cycles is certainly a normal part of that. I hate to say it, can go on for years, but, if you're turning 50 in October, the average age in, Western sort of society for women to go through menopause is 51. So, you're very close to the finish line there. So hang in there. It's frustrating, not knowing what's going to happen, why things are changing, but also too, you've got the weight gain there. So nothing's changed in your diet, and it can be, just as our levels of estrogen decline, as our hormones decline, we are more susceptible to cortisol and also to insulin. So they're 2 of our big fat storage hormones, which can be triggering that weight gain. So, that's where we need to work on supporting your hormones, more so than looking at, do we need a diet? Okay. Now we've got some questions on HRT, which is great. And I love these questions. And It is really important. And I just sort of want to say, again, I can't get too specific on the answers, but I can talk generally for you to answer your questions in a general sense rather than give you specific health advice because, I don't know your health history. I don't know the reason why you've been prescribed this, but happy to answer your questions in a general sense. So Heidi says she's 47. She's been on bioidentical hormone replacement for 5 years. So she's taking testosterone, progesterone, and she's saying her estrogen level so far has been okay. Now, she wanted to know about the ratio of estrogen to progesterone that works for most women and what level of testosterone is the happy place. Okay, so again, it's very individual and depending on your previous health history. So we would ideally, and the fact that you're on a range of hormones is perfect. It's difficult to give you an exact ratio of estrogen to progesterone because not one thing works for everyone. Every woman's hormonal needs are unique. However, a general rule of thumb is to aim for a ratio of 1:1 up to 2:1, with progesterone being the higher number. As for testosterone, the happy level, the perfect level of testosterone varies hugely from woman to woman. And it depends on things like your age, your overall health, your lifestyle habits, because testosterone, if we go too high, for instance, so with women who've had previous history of polycystic ovaries, it can sort of link to insulin sensitivity. So there's that to be mindful of as well. So very much can vary from person to person and very much dependent on individual health factors and, what your actual symptoms are as well. So I know that's not a specific answer. It's a bit general, but it's hard to give you a specific answer in a podcast. Okay, now Liz asks, should women over 65 take estrogen either orally or as pessaries? Now, this is super interesting because whether or not women over 65 should actually even be taking HRT is very much a topic of ongoing debate within the medical community. So, in Australia, the advice is, take HRT for up to 10 years post-menopause. In the UK, I know that they are now advocating for longer-term use of HRT. Now, the thing is, it also depends on your health status, your risk factors, and also your personal preferences. So women who've experienced surgical menopause or what they call premature ovarian failure, so early menopause, may benefit from HRT to manage symptoms, protect against bone loss and things like that. But on the flip side, HRT does carry some risks. So you do have increased risk of blood clots, stroke, breast cancer. So it's important for you to be able to have an informed conversation with your health practitioner about the potential risks and the benefits of HRT for you. Okay. So definitely, taking estrogen over the age of 65 should be something that you discuss with your doctor, and certainly taking it via pessaries is in, a much lower dose as well, and it's going to be localized to that vaginal area. So I'm not wanting to assume, but I'm assuming that is for vaginal dryness, and, given its localized dose, it potentially would have lower risks. So I hope that helps. Now, Margarita asks a really interesting question. She's taking estrogen and progesterone, and she has her period 2 to 3 times a month. How do you regulate your hormones to stop your period? She's 55. So thank you, Margarita, for answering the question. So it sounds like you might be experiencing some breakthrough bleeding. So this can definitely be common, particularly when you're starting hormone therapy or you're adjusting your dose. Again, not knowing the reasons are you still ovulating? So it could just well be that you need to adjust your dose and even the type of hormone therapy. It's also worth noting that some women may continue to experience periods even while they're on hormone therapy. So to stop your period altogether, it would be something that, have you actually gone through menopause, and is it a pill bleed that you're experiencing? I can't give you a definitive answer there, but definitely I would be looking at the dose, and definitely you should not be having a period 2 to 3 times a month. Okay, so Jo asks, how long can you stay on HRT patches? She's been on it for about 6 years. And she's also been on the pill and has perimenopause symptoms. Okay, so my question here would be, why are you taking the pill and why are you also taking HRT? So the pill is a synthetic progestin, okay? So it's not a progesterone. So the pill will naturally put your body into a chemically induced menopause as it suppresses ovulation. Now, there's no set limit, as I said earlier, how long a person can stay on HRT for. And the patches, again, are a really relatively low dose and relatively considered low risk. So it very much depends on your individual health factors and symptoms. But I would be sort of looking at switching out the pill for an oral micronized progesterone rather than, I don't see why you would be on the pill and HRT at the same time. So that would sort of be my question there. And again, I don't know your health history. I don't know the reason why your doctor would have done that. And I'm sure, I don't want to assume that they had a good reason. Maybe it's just the way that they do it. But definitely I would be questioning that. And can you switch out the pill for a oral micronized progesterone? Because I think, in my experience, that women do better on that. Okay, and Annabelle, final question from Annabelle. What is a good minimal estrogen level for bone protection and joint pain? What is the progesterone level needed to balance out this estrogen? Okay, so, and again, the optimal estrogen and progesterone levels for bone protection, joint pain, varies so much on individual health factors and symptoms. And it's important too to remember that HRT isn't a magic bullet. It is not just going to come in and magically fix all of your issues. We still need to look at diet. We still need to look at lifestyle. We still need to look at, emotional well-being as well. So I would be looking, if you're looking for bone protection, I would be looking at, incorporating calcium-rich food into your diet every single day, regardless of HRT or not. So, and the most bioavailable calcium, isn't necessarily from dairy. We get a lot of calcium from nuts, from seeds, leafy greens, small edible fish with, like sardines, mackerel, things like that. You can also, you want a good quality bioavailable calcium, caltrate ain't it, ladies. We also want to make sure that vitamin D levels are good. Vitamin K is in your diet as well. And then definitely progesterone as well as estrogen together. And again, it's the reason you've gone on HRT, is that will help, and where you're at in your menopause journey will help with what doses that should be. And again, you might need to play around with it sometimes, but certainly I'd be looking at diet, at lifestyle, strength training, supporting your bones that way as well. So, ladies, this has been super fun, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So thank you to Annabelle, Jo, Margarita, Liz, Heidi, the other Liz, Brandy, Jane, Erica, Judy, Kathy, Anita, Mel, and Rose and Chrissy for all of your questions. So I will do more of these episodes. I think, I certainly learned a lot because I was sort of like, oh, okay, this is what you really want to know. So it was great for me, and I'll be able to sort of put more content out for exactly what you're all after. But like I said, You're all individual. You all had a million different questions, and I hope today I've been able to help answer them. All right, thanks, ladies, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for taking the time to listen today. You can head on over to the show notes at kyliepinwell.com/podcast, where you'll find all the links, and I have a little bonus surprise waiting for you. Before we go, it would mean the world to me if you head on over to your favourite podcasts channel, subscribe and leave a review. Make sure to screenshot it, DM it to me so I can thank you personally. Then stay tuned for next week's episode. Can't wait to see you then.